Hey buddies, welcome to AmassGames. My name is Simon. Today we're looking at Rio Grande Friese's Findorff. This has been published by Rio Grande Games, and first of all came out in 2022 in October when I first actually played this game. So this particular game is all about populating Findorff, and you might notice that the board is sideways because quite frankly it's a large board. I have zoomed out. This is in 4K. I hope you find this of interest. I'm using a specific camera that I had to get on purpose to try and do this, but you'll typically be faced in this kind of orientation when you are playing the game. It's for 1 to 5 players. I've played as a 5, a 2 and a 3 for multiple days in a row. Very much enjoy this game. Just to let you know, some components though, these kind of tray things do not come with the game. Check out my accessories playlist for those, and I have sleeved the game too, so make sure you check out my sleeving playlist because again it doesn't come with those. Now normally I'll do a complete how to set up playing review. It does take about 15 minutes, so I've already done it in advance. So you can see I've populated the components over here, of which there's hundreds. You've also got these various tiles, so depending on the amount of players, you're placing out these various tiles. These are known as production tiles. We've also got action tiles over here too. And we've got these structures, which I've tended to put in piles over here, which again would normally perhaps be off the board. They're not really essential to play, the vast majority of them, but it's very nice kind of advent calendar kind of feel as you kind of find the respective location. Again, they're not in a sequential order, and then placing them out. Okay, so in Findorff, this is a place in the north, I think, east of Bremen, which is where Rio Grande Friese presently lives. As you may have seen from my other video, I actually have met him a few times, back in 2018 in particular, talking to him about Petershagen, where he was actually born, I believe, 12 kilometers away from where my wife was born too. So he now lives in Bremen, and we've driven to Findorff, which took about 20 minutes through Bremen to get to due to traffic. But this is a game whereby you're trying to get the most points, and you're mainly getting them through structures, and they give you 50 points per structure built. You'll also get more points from rails left over for 10 points, 4 for brick, and talers, which are basically currency in the game, 1 point for each tile you have left over, and there's some coal left over, or peat left over too. Now this track over here is very much like Power Grid. I think this game is very much like Power Grid, but I prefer it slightly, but I'll come back onto that later. Let's talk to you about how the game plays. This is an engine building game. Again, everything is off to the side of the shot, sort of slightly for the time being. You're playing as one of 5 different colours. You have green in the game, blue, white, orange, and purple. So I'm playing as purple as an example. And what I can do on my turn is the following. I can choose to take this action. This action is known as the purchase action, and it allows me to purchase more things, such as more structures. So I can pay 10 talers, 2 brick, and 2 rail to bring it out. And I'll be getting 4 income, which I'll come back onto later, and a special action tile. Now, aside from that, what you'll be doing in this game is starting off with some money as well, and the amount of money you start off with will depend on which player starter position you are. So if I happen to be starting, I'll start off with 16 money, the next player starts with 18, 20, 22, 24, and that's it. Everyone's going to start off with a bureaucracy, kind of player aid. There's no other player aid in the game. You can get them online. I do recommend you use them and print them off. And also you're going to have a little warehouse, and you're going to be limited on how much you can store in the game. And sometimes you can build structures which increase your house too. So in this game, like I said, you can take one of 3 actions initially by starting off in this location and building out a structure. Now I've deliberately placed out 4 structures here, which are basically the market in a 3-player game, but everybody else is going to have either a set number of cards for the first game, or you're going to draft and play with some cards and see which ones you want to play with, and then you can build them. Now the cost of building them is listed up at the top, and what you kind of get is down the bottom, and there's also a year thing too. So right now it's going to cost me 18 talers, which again I could start off with 18 and maybe build it on my first turn. However, if I want to wait, every time I build, that moves up 1 space, and eventually when it gets to 1865, anything in 1803, so about 62 years earlier, is going to be 5 talers or 5 money cheaper. So things are going to start getting built. What I tend to recommend people do is they slide it under the board slightly, just visibly showing the bottom of benefit at the end of the game, which is handy because you're counting up how many cards you have, and for some of these cards, they are one-off abilities anyway. So you can take that first action, which again is to get one of these tiles, or build a structure. You're typically doing this on your first turn. What you're looking to do is maybe getting this tile out, which I'll show you why you want to in a second. And by the way, everyone also starts off with this, which is just out of shot, which is a barge containing 2 peat. Again, I do apologise for the fact that I'm not having a spare space to show you this out of shot because it's just such a big board. And I've already zoomed out to obviously 0.5 of the typical board size. So what you can do instead is buy one of these tiles over here. These are upgrade tiles. This is an upgrading kind of game. So let me show you how that works. Let me say I buy that one for 2, and it could go here. However, instead of this, maybe I want to buy this one. Let's say it costs me 7. So I pay my money and it builds here. It's someone else's turn. It's back to my turn. I could choose to stay where I am. Now I can move 0 to 3 spaces. So let's say I do 0 spaces. I stay here. I can now take another 2 purchase tiles. So normally I can do 1 purchase action, but now I can do 2 purchase actions. So again, I can still to buy more of these if I want to. It's always going to be the cheapest value first. And that's always going to increase in value, so you want to race to try and get these early. This is kind of a race game, and the game does end, by the way, when this rail bed is completed, and then this rail bed is completed, and you're going to finish the round which everybody person triggers this. So if I'm the second player, the first player won't get another turn, and the third player might take an extra turn, which might involve moving this along, but you will finish the round. So now I've taken this turn, maybe I've finished wanting to purchase stuff or run out of cash. I can have this step, which allows me to get 1 worker. Now again, if I had purchased this guy over here, or the cheapest one, then if I was happen to move down to this space, I'd have purchased 2. So do I rather, get more purchasing in? Do I want to get more workers in? And maybe then I do down this one, which is produce. So I have my little boat here. That's all I've got at the minute, let's say. This allows me to produce. So I take 1 of my workers that's available, place on here, get myself 2 of my peat and place them in my respective location on the warehouse. Anything can go, but I tend to start at the top, as you may imagine. And then what's going to happen is, let's say I had a different, or I can stay there again, or maybe I'd already purchased an additional tile. I can obviously do 2 purchases. I've got nothing else to purchase, to produce, but maybe I've got this one out too. I go on this location, and it lets me get me a brick. And then let's go to the sales action. So I've got something to sell. Currently the market is telling me I'm going to get myself 5 tilers. So I'm going to get 5 plus in this one as well, because you can sell up to 2 peat for 1 sell action. And I'm going to get myself 10 money. So I get myself 10 money, and now I've got some money. Great. Good for when I want to start purchasing something like this later on. So I could also do other things. I could choose to sell brick. So if I happen to sell brick, it lets me take one of my houses, and it's going to go on the board in any of these spaces. It doesn't really matter. And then we're going to go to, I can't do anything else, got nothing else to sell. So now we're going to bureaucracy. Now bureaucracy is very much like in a rondel style game. First off, you're going to heat your homes. So let's say I've got myself 1 peat house. So 1 house that's being heated by peat. So I'm going to sell it off. And in this case, it removes 1 peat. Then for every pair of workers and houses, so I've got 1 house and I've got at least 1 worker, I'm going to take myself 4 tilers, so I'm going to take myself 2 2s. And then lastly, what I can choose to do, these don't take up space, I'm just trying to make it clear over there, is what I can do is then I must place a rail on the track. So you obviously start down here first, as I mentioned, Z position 1, position 2, and when I cross this location, we'll be losing peat from here. So peat's going to get used up as all these houses need heating up. But eventually people do not want peat, because with the railroad track, they want coal instead, and things are going to start plummeting the price. So then lastly, what we're doing is we're basically having one of our guys come back, and the other guy's going to die. We always lose a person each time you do bureaucracy. And then lastly, you're going to gain income. So you might, if I've got this one out already, I'll be getting myself 4 money. That's each time I do bureaucracy. But also on my turn, when I hit this bottom location, is I can then pick another one of these locations. So if I started here, I can move 0 to 3. So that could be 1, 2, or 3. So you could stay where I was, or I could just go 1, 2, 3. And in this case, let's say I go up here, I've got some cash, and I've got 14 to spend. Let's say I go for some rails, or whatever reason, I don't know. Go for some rails. So let's get some rails. It's going to cost me 11, so I spend my money. So 10 plus 2, get 1 back. And now I've got myself a couple of rails, which allow me to get more stuff. So now I've got this tile out. What you normally do is flip it over, and then someone else takes their turn. Let's say I go down here. I get myself 2 workers, because now I've got 2 positions. And now I jump down here, and now suddenly I can start producing. So I place 1 worker on here, get myself 2 rails. I then place another worker on here. Again, it'll be the same action to get myself 2 peats. And then I stay a turn, everyone else takes a turn, I take my turn, I go on here and I get myself a brick. Again, that would be flipped over too. And now let's say I want to sell, so let's say I sell this, I get another 10 tilers back. And let's say, again, I can do 2 actions, I sell a rail. So if I sell a rail, firstly, we lose a peat. And I'm going to gain myself 10 tilers as per listed here. So I get myself 10 money, and I've got a bit more money than last time. And then we're going to go into maybe wanting to do bureaucracy again. So we're going to heat our homes. So we're going to get yourself peat removed, We're then also then going to go to each pair. So we're going to get myself 4 tilers. So we're going to get 4 more tilers. We're going to place another track bed down, and then a worker dies. These guys come back. No income again currently, but then we're going to go around again from maybe wanting to build something. So now I've got rails and stuff like this out. I can look through my cards. If ever I want to, I can buy one of these cards instead, or can produce one of these structures, but I must hand in a card as well. So that's how the game's going to keep on going, like I said, until someone triggers the endpoint, and then whoever does, of course, it will then finish the round in terms of how we get on. But when you do build these structures, like I said, you are building out these things, and sometimes there are some specials which allow more track beds, which might slow the game down rather than you building out here, etc. So what do I think of the game? Well, my rating is an 8.5. Like I said, I played it 2 years ago and loved it. Everyone I played it with since has loved it too. Get some negatives as well though, so I wouldn't be a 9 presently for a few reasons. These are only 2 or 3 high in a 2 or 3 player game, but with more players, you're going to have an extra height, and I have found higher player counts, even at low player counts, with 3 of these on here, they can fall over and it can be a bit fiddly. That includes setup as well. This is also having to be set up, so I tend to do it by obviously numerical value, and it's off to the side. But not only are then having to find the token, you also need to find where it is on the board. And having played it a few times, it still takes some time to try and figure out where it is on here. Like even number 1, I can't find that right now. It's here. So it doesn't do much value. The only point of using this is when this keeps moving along, you can quickly count up. But it's just as easy to count up how many cards people have played. The cards are quite thin, thinner than I thought. Now I'm using extra thick MTL sleeves here, which are 70 by 120. Unfortunately, I don't have the yellow ones, which are 110 high, so use the red ones. But that is needed. The box is slightly more flimsy than I thought. This was made in Germany, and there's a slight bit of box crush. I know there were quite a few versions out, and yes, I'm not sure what's going on with that one. The money's all different sizes though, which is great, and the pieces are very nice. Only one piece for some reason of these 2 is somehow stuck together, but that's fine. But it's very nice, bright pieces. I like the artwork. It can be a bit bland for some, I can guess that, but the actual gameplay itself is lovely. Very quick turns, so quick we sometimes need to check who is playing, because if you're doing this, grabbing 2 workers saying, yeah, I'm done. So very, very quick turns. It's very much a spreadsheet game. So if you like spreadsheet games, this is the kind of game for you thinking, oh, my first turn, do I want to get more brick, or do I want to get more rail, or do I want to get more peat, or do I want to start making sure I can get more production turns, so then get more tiles. There's that kind of concept going on too. And every game is going to be different. Like as a 2, you're shuffling up and getting 9 cards each, and 7 cards go into the market. I like the kind of the race element. Like I said, it's not a long game. 75 minutes is on the box. That is very accurate. We've literally made pasta bake whilst playing, and eaten by the time we finished the game. I like the dying workers concept. That's very cool, or retiring as I tend to say. It doesn't come with a player rate though, so it doesn't tell you that you have, for example, hiring and purchasing and production and selling. I think that'd be nice. I know there is something like that available online, which I recommend doing. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it off. I think you also need to be aware of the fact that, yeah, trying to optimize, it can be tricky. So you can have some very quick turns. Some turns can take a while, especially whilst you're doing bureaucracy. But generally speaking, apart from the filliness here, I think it's very good. I mentioned obviously you need the player aid. You can get an insert, but it's like £80 or something. And the insert inside isn't very good. You definitely had to have that removed. But yeah, it's a great game. It's much higher than average. My average being a 6.4 based on over 2,700 reviews at time of recording. This is over an 8.5 though. And yeah, this is perhaps my favourite Freedom and Friese games, and also Rio Grande games. This is in my top 3 at the very least for both of them. I think it perhaps even might be number 1. There's a couple of other games, well, one in particular by Rio Grande, which I think is slightly high presently for me. But for Freedom and Friese, I think this is my highest rated one for him. I love the smoothness of it. I like the market. It hasn't moved as much, I would say, as in Power Grid, but it is a game whereby you have to constantly keep looking out and thinking, do I want to sell? Is it helping my opponents? And there's some really good cards as well, like the Cemetery, whereby when somebody loses a worker, you're getting 2 money. So there's some really cool stuff in here. Apparently there's some grammar differences. So as this was in German initially, and I know there were 5 translators involved, someone who is German, who's got a first screen English, said some of the wording doesn't quite make sense apparently on how it would then translate. But I like the way that you're getting income each turn. Each time you obviously do bureaucracy, and you might want to just try and do everything in order, but sometimes you're going to start skipping. Sometimes you're going to get loads of workers. They're not going to need any. Like I said, you could stay here and there's 30 workers to grab, but by the time we've done probably 15 turns, someone might have already finished the game or done other things. Now, once you've played out your starting cards, your starting hand of structures, what you're also going to then be doing is choosing to say, okay, once I've played them all out and you swapped out whatever they want for the market, you can then choose to just keep on getting stuff for the market because you've got nothing else to then swap in. That's fine. Any questions, as always, do let me know via the comments are best on YouTube. I know I may have spoken a bit fast on this one, so please do slow it down and rewatch. And always, like I said, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell via the comments on YouTube. You can support the channel by Patreon. Head through to Linktree, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, the podcast, etc. This is going in the, it is going to go in the family 8 players, I think. It's 14 plus is the recommendation, and I think that's partially due to small parts, but I think it is fairly accessible. I do recommend it. It's going to have a setup plan review playlist. I've already mentioned some other playlists already, and I've also mentioned obviously how scoring works. So yeah, 50 points for these cards is the biggest way of getting points. And scores have been sort of relatively close within a structure or two. So yeah, you definitely want to try and get those structures, trying to compete to get the best ones, which can define based on maybe what you've got. And yeah, very enjoyable. You don't know who's going to win till the end, which for some people is good, some people is bad, because some people might think, okay, well, that person's in the lead, or otherwise people might not have any inkling as to who's in the lead. But yeah, that has been Findorff. A beautiful box. It is a large box. Like I think that's part of the issue in terms of maybe the risk in terms of it getting crushed or something. It's like a 35 centimeter high box at least, or 37, I think. But no, very enjoyable. Highly recommend checking this one out. This has been Findorff. Thanks very much for watching. Enjoy the game. Back to the table.